Welcome everybody at the new meeting of Brussels Liberty Network. Today I have with me as the keynote Professor Samuel Furfari. He has been not only for a long time a professor at Université Libre de Bruxelles, but he has also been a senior energy policy official at the European Commission. So we'll film his intervention for Riks Europe, which is a great social media channel I'm involved with, to give it more exposure, because this is an incredibly important topic. What we see today in Germany is deindustrialization. Even in Belgium today, the figures were out that I think 25,000 industrial jobs were lost over the last year. Of course, there's also jobs, new jobs being created, but we clearly have a problem with industry, and this is clearly linked to the price of energy in Europe. The Benelux is, after all, just like some kind of a pre-portal for the German economy. When Germany is doing good, we're doing good. When Germany is doing bad, we're suffering. And we're clearly suffering now because Germany has been introducing all kinds of energy experiments, which is not a good idea, to experiment with your energy supply. It's kind of important. Professor Furfari has for decades been trying to steer the European Commission ship in the right direction, but that's been
without success.
An uphill task, because now it seems that they finally are getting it, but yes, they have been doubling down consistently on ever more risky policies in the name of climate change. So that said, please, Professor.
Thank you, Peter, and thank you for being here for this friendly discussion. I'm very surprised to see that I know a lot of young people around Brussels. It's a big change for me. And it's important also sometimes to come back to the past, because we should not think that everything was bad in the European Commission in the past. If you look at a lot of social media, they criticize badly mainly the European Commission. They forget to criticize the Parliament, but they always criticize the European Commission. And having worked 36 years in the Commission, I think that the problem is not the Commission. The problem is the politics, which is put forward by the politician in the Council and the Parliament. It's too easy to always say the bureaucrat of the Commission, the bureaucrat of the Commission. The bureaucrats of the Commission are implementing what the Council is saying and what the Parliament requests. You know, the Parliament requests resolution, and then we are obliged to implement it. I do not say that the Commissioner are not pleased to do that, but it is not the willingness of the official to make bureaucracy. We are requested to make always new legislation by the Parliament. I've seen the big change with the Maastricht Treaty. Before the Maastricht Treaty, the European Parliament had the right to vote the budget. Nothing more. Just the budget, not legislation. And then the Maastricht Treaty gave the right to the Parliament to be co-legislator. And since then, we had an explosion of legislation, particularly in the field of energy. For many years in DG Energy, we were working on strategies, number, scenario, technology. And then suddenly, we have been requested to make legislation. Take the example of renewable energy. Renewable energy has not been pushed by climate change. It's not because of climate change that we are working on renewable energy. It is because the oil shock of 1973, 51 years ago, that we say we need to diversify from oil. So we will develop. And we have, for years, developed a lot of technologies. If we have windmill and solar panel today, it's because the EU has pushed on research and development on that. And in the year 2000, we had the technology, and then the parliament said, you should do more. What have we decided to do? To oblige by legislation to produce renewable energy. 2001 directive. But the 2001 directive was only on electricity and without a binding target. There were target, but not binding. 2009, we have introduced a binding target. Why? Because Mrs. Merkel asked it. I was in charge of renewable at that time. So I can testify that it is Mrs. Merkel that asked Mr. Barroso to introduce an obligation to produce renewable energy, to produce renewable energy. And since then, we are going up and up. You know, is it normal to have a directive to explain people that they need to save energy of maybe 30 pages of legislation? All the details are there to tell people how to save energy. But saving energy is part of our rationale. Nobody should say us to save energy, because saving energy is, wasting energy is stupid, particularly in the industry. An industry which is not making energy saving will go bankrupt with time, for sure. No, we oblige them to do things as we want because the parliament wanted. You know, between the moment we publish a directive, proposal of directive, and the moment it is adopted, it is the size of the directive is multiplied by 2 or 3, because all the lobbyists are in Strasbourg or here in Brussels asking to introduce new things in the legislation. And at the end, we have an inflation of legislation with the result that we do not change really a lot in energy policy, except that there is more legislation and expensive consequences. So it's quite surprising that the people do not understand that the issue is really a lack of freedom in the field of energy. It was not like that in the past, I repeat. We have introduced so much punishment with the directive that if the parliament do not come back to rationale, we will continue to be in a mess. I like this part of the Draghi report because he says like that we have too much legislation. But when I read that, I was really smiling because it's already in the Prodi commission that we were saying that there is too much legislation and that we should not have one new legislation if we don't drop all the legislation. So it's an ongoing language, but nothing changed. We continue to increase the number of burden.
If I may just ask one question, would you say that if you would take away the legislative powers of the European Parliament and restore the veto powers for EU member states, would that make any change, you think, to stop the regulatory machine?
Yes, I was in favor, of course, of Maastricht Treaty, as probably all the officials of the Commission. But with time, I realized that this is really the burden of the EU. 720 people, which are not specialists in anything, which decide what to do with legislation. This is really a problem, huge problem. And it will not be solved because they are co-legislators. And all the texts which are going in the parliament are really becoming a nightmare for the industry. This summer, I was on holiday with my family, and my nephew were playing with another girl and so on. And then we had a dinner with the mother of these children. And she is a French working in Germany, just on the other border of the border. And she explained me that her job is to quantify how much it will cost for the company to implement a sustainable development legislation, specific legislation, or how much it will cost as a penalty. And it is a full team that are analyzing, well, we will respect it or we will pay the fee. And it's a company with 60,000 people in all the parts of the world. And I cannot say what they are producing, but what they are producing is putting together a lot of different small elements. And they have to control all the supplier if they are complying with the sustainable development rules. It's a nightmare.
That's the new due diligence regulation.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
It's how is it possible? And this lady was really, she said, okay, I'm paid to do that, but it's a crazy job. So really, we have been too far in the control of our life, and the only thing to do is to stop this massive legislation. And the first thing to do is, first of all, is to cut the number of parliamentarians. Why do we have 720? It's far too much. And those people need something to leave. You know, when they go back in their constituency, they need to say, okay, I've done something in Strasbourg. Otherwise, they will not be re-elected. So the problem is that. Well, coming back now on energy, in 2016, we have published a communication, one in 2014 and one in 2016, very good communication, saying what we should do on energy policy. It was not a directive, it was a communication. Huh? And there we were saying a lot of common sense. An example that nobody mentioned, gas, natural gas, is a clean fuel. So clean that all the kitchen around here are preparing the food with natural gas, because it's clean. And in this communication, we were saying we should develop much more natural gas in the transport sector. For example, in Iran, a big majority of the cars are running with gas, natural gas, because they have so much gas they don't know what to do in Iran. It's the second reserve of gas in Iran. And the small oil that they can produce, they want to sell it to get money. So strategically they are wise. They say, we don't use gas in oil in the transportation sector, we use gas. So we have put in this directive, we should push communication, we should push much more emphasis on the use of gas in automotive, which is banal. It's very simple. You don't need to change anything. You just put gas in your car and it's running, natural gas. But we have said also the same for boats, particularly for the ferry in Greece. There are a lot of ferries in Greece. They can operate with gas. Then arrive a commissioner, I will not mention the name, and he say, you drop that everything will be batteries. So it's a commissioner which have decided that, probably by influence by I don't know whom, but we drop completely this idea. And this idea is clean, cheap, immediate. All the rest is just science fiction. So you see, we knew what to do. Another thing that we were saying in this directive, communication, sorry, we should look for shale gas. We should look for shale gas. No, we cannot look for shale gas in Europe. It's forbidden. But we buy shale gas in America. 40% of the gas produced in America, exported gas, not used, exported gas from America is coming to Europe. But we cannot know if we have gas in Europe by politicians. So promise you that we knew what to do in the European Commission, but we have been obliged to listen to the policy. So it's why we are in a mess. And Mr. Draghi is in his report is realizing that, and he say that the price of electricity is 2 to 3 times more than electricity, and the price of gas is 4 to 5 times more than, or 3 to 4 times more than in America. And he say, well, but we will spend 700 or 800 billion to improve the situation every year. Indeed, he recognized that we are in a deep trouble. He even say, for the first time since the Cold War, we generally have to worry about our survival. About our survival. Yes, if we continue to lose in competitiveness, we will lose in productivity and quality of life, isn't it? What are we going to do? So he say, we are wrong, but the solution is to spend more public money that we don't have. So I think it's very worrying. The situation is very worrying. And I don't see Mrs. von der Leyen accepting that she was wrong. She will continue. And if there are not enough weight in Strasbourg, we will continue to waste our money to develop windmill and solar panel, which is totally useless. And I think that even Draghi in his report is missing the point with, he didn't mention the BRICS once. He just focused on our market, that we need to manipulate our market with public financing. Look at what is happening with the BRICS. And then you will see that we are wrong, really. So I think that the problem, no, it's not technology. We have technologies. It's just because we want to be the leader on decarbonization. And I conclude with this clear message also of Draghi's. It's why I'm not so critical with Draghi, because he put clearly the things which are wrong, but he didn't dare to unplease Mrs. von der Leyen. I would put it like that. And so what he said, we should choose if we want to be free or to give up our freedom. We should choose if we want to give up our well-being or to be the beacon of climate change. 3 things. And even say that maybe we will drop the tree if we want to save Europe. I don't think that we need to drop the tree. Liberty, freedom, we are in danger of freedom, you know? If people continue to control us, to say what we have to eat, how to go on holiday, what to drive, how to heat your house, it's a question of freedom. Well-being, if we are in good condition in Europe and the world would like to copy us because we have a good quality of life, we need to keep that. I believe that we need to keep that. And for that, we need to be competitive and create jobs and create industries and new technologies and cheaper energy. Otherwise, we will lose the quality of life. And the third thing is, well, should we continue to be the savior of the planet when the other continue to emit more and more CO2? I don't know if you remember that 9th of April, Narendra Modi, Prime Minister of India, made a tweet saying, fantastic development in our country. We have been able to produce in 2023 1 billion tons of coal. He's proud to have produced 1 billion tons of coal. And this will help us to continue to be the leader. And here we just want to, we represent 7% of the CO2 emissions. Belgium 0.3%. And we want to save the planet. Draghi is right, we need to choose. Or we drop the freedom, or we drop the well-being, or we drop the dream to save the planet with the CO2 emissions.
Well, thank you very much. Before I go to the floor, I have a question. Could you explain a bit more the development with the BRICS? You were saying you have to look at what the BRICS are doing. So
the BRICS have only one objective, is to prosper, to create quality of life for their people, mainly India and China, but also the other. And they represent the 10 BRICS, new BRICS countries. They represent 50.4% of the CO2 emissions. 10 countries. Nothing will happen in the COP 29 in Baku in November because the BRICS represent 50%. So forget about dreaming that we will reduce the CO2 emission with the COP. COPs are finished. Also because in the African countries have understood that to have a prosperity, they need to what we have done in Europe. Why did we develop in Europe in the 50s and 60s and 70s? Because we had cheap and abundant energy. This was the fundamental of the Messina conference in 1955, cheap and abundant energy. So African countries, India, China, BRICS country want cheap and abundant energy. It's the contrary of the EU, where we want to have green and expensive energy. So the BRICS are going in a total other direction. And furthermore, inside the BRICS, there is Russia, Saudi Arabia, and Iran. 3 main countries for oil. So they can control the development of oil. And Mr. Prodi Draghi has mentioned once the word oil in his report. The most important energy in the world is oil. Without oil, you stop everything. And Mr. Draghi mentioned once. So we are in the hand of BRICS for oil and for the CO2 emissions. And here we ignore it. I learned yesterday that Turkey have requested to adhere to the BRICS. So it's strange, isn't it? Yeah. A member of the NATO that want to join the BRICS.
So let's assume that Europe returns to nuclear power. That's of course optimistic, but I think you can argue that now everywhere in Europe people are coming back to their senses. In Italy, Sweden, even Denmark. Denmark is the country where the opposition against nuclear energy started. They have this logo with the sun, nuclear energy, no thank you. That's originally from Denmark. So even there, things are changing. Of course, in Belgium, here, the new government is likely to extend as many nuclear power plants as they want. So let's assume that's going to be fixed in the next 20 years. But what about fossil fuels in Europe? I mean, do you think we have opportunities to exploit or deploy fossil fuel production ourselves? I think in Holland you have the biggest gas field in the world. There's North Sea oil. Are there any other opportunities, or are we dependent on the rest of the world for that?
First of all, on nuclear, the developments are really impressive. The new Dutch government have decided to double the number of reactors that Matthias Rutte have decided. The previous government had decided to make two reactors, and this one is making 4. And the mayor of Terneuzen, north of Belgium, Terneuzen, immediately wrote a letter to the government saying, "Please come to Terneuzen to make the plant, one of the plants." So there is a big development, but we are in danger because we do not have any more technology, except a little bit France. But you have seen the difficulties with EPR in Flamanville. So we are in danger. We were the leader, really. We were the leader. France was building 5 reactors a year in the 70s. And now we have to buy in America. Westinghouse is selling in Croatia and in Bulgaria and Poland. Korean are selling in Czechia. Russian are selling in Hungary. We lose our technology because there were politicians saying, no, we do not want, thank you for nuclear. It's the same with oil and gas. We have oil and gas in Europe, of course, but it's forbidden. In Spain, it's forbidden to look if there is oil and gas in the Mediterranean Sea.
It's Morocco with Israeli companies.
Yeah. So it's just a question of legislation. Of course, we have oil and gas in Europe. Everywhere there is oil and gas. Or the geology is such that there is oil and gas reservoir all around the sea. It's why there is the North Sea, Norway Sea, and so on. So there is oil and gas. But this is not really a problem because oil and gas are abundant in the world, we can buy it. But we will have blackout in Europe, you know? Because who is going to invest in electricity today? They know that wind and solar are a joke. So we need real power plant. With the difficulties of nuclear, I don't know what will happen, but we need thermal power plant, coal and gas. Who is going to take the risk to say, I want to build a coal-fired power plant in Europe? You'll be killed immediately. So nobody invests, but we want to have everything electrified, including the heating. You imagine heating with electricity, the house. We want electrical car, we want AI. Everything should be electrical, but we cannot build a thermal power plant.
If I may, in France, I think 10-15% of houses are warmed by electricity, no?
Yes.
So
because they had built so much nuclear power plant in the past.
Yeah.
So are we going to build new nuclear power plant to heat the houses?
Why not?
Wow, but we need a lot.
Yeah.
I think that I've seen the calculation for driving car with a nuclear power plant. It's practically impossible. It's too much. Not only too much, but we need time to do that also. So the solution is to come back to rationale, give up the idea that gas is bad, and we should, you know, Mr. Draghi in his report said that in 2030, in 6 years' time, we should stop gas. How is it possible to say such a ridiculous thing?
All right, thank you very much. I'm sure there may be some questions, so please shoot.
Thank you for your speech and presentation. I have at least 3 questions. So one is following, do you think that the European left is trying to copy-paste American-style war on oil led now by Biden and Harris administration? The second thing, what do you think about the new ESG legislation or so-called corporate sustainability reporting, and how burdensome will it be for businesses? And the third one, as we know, the Parliament and the Council passed the law which practically bans fossil fuel cars after 2035. Do you think such a decision will be aborted and not opposed just by ECR, but also maybe some reasonable elements of EPP or I don't know, hard to tell.
Tomorrow in Atlantico, there will be one of my articles on what can happen in Israel with if they bomb the oil installation in Iran. And I mentioned there that Mrs. Kamala Harris is very much annoyed because she has always insisted to ban the fracking. And now she realized that if there is a problem in Iran, USA is safe because they have so much oil that they need. And so she is very much annoyed, and Trump is pushing her, saying, you have been against fracking, but see the situation. If something happened to the oil in Iran, we are safe because we are continue to be develop the fracking. But here in Europe, it's impossible to mention that. They do not want even to listen to the word fracking. But yes, I was not even mentioning the fracking when I say that there is oil, but with fracking you increase massively the capacities, the reserve. On ESG, I published a paper last week. You can find it in Contrepoint about ESG. One of the promoters of ESG was BlackRock, with Mr. Fink. And now BlackRock have changed completely his mind, because they say, we need, first of all, to satisfy the return for our investor. And ESG pass in the back. But the same thing in a few states in USA. Florida, West Carolina, Texas, they say, we stop to work with banks which are looking at ESG. And so the banks are changing their mind. In Europe, we are not yet there, but ESG was not as developed that it was in USA. In USA, it has been immediate, but they dropped that because at the end, you can develop, of course, technologies to avoid pollution, but not to discard the return of investment for the pension fund, for example. So ESG, for me, is finished. There will now be a new development. And the third question was on?
Do you think that the Parliament and the Council will...
Oh, with the ban of car. Yeah. Well, yesterday, I think it was yesterday or 2 days ago, yesterday, in the Parliament, there was a discussion on that.
The EPP asked to
postpone,
or at least reconsider the ban from 2035 on combustion engine cars.
Yeah, also the committee of the regions.
Sorry.
Also the committee of the regions on Tuesday.
Okay.
It's a really nonsense, you know, to say that in 2035 you cannot buy new cars, thermal cars. Who have driven already an electrical car? You have tried only one?
Try, yes, not having, but
try, yes. Huh?
try, yes.
It's fantastic, no?
Fantastic. Yeah.
It's super. It's really a great thing, an electrical car. But why should we oblige people to have an electrical car? That's the problem. Always legislation, you see? Obligation.
They did not ban horses 150 years ago.
Back to horses.
And they didn't ban coal locomotive. And the coal locomotive disappears, at least in Europe. So the problem is just that, the obligation, and we have obliged without realizing that the most important thing that we have done is destroying the car industry in Europe. We can discuss about if we have enough electricity, if we have the place to place the charger, a lot of things. But the problem is the destruction of our economy, of our industry. And they have not reflected to that. And we are not, the manufacturers are not selling cars nowadays because people are afraid. Say, if I buy a car, what will happen with my car in a few years? Will I be able to sell it if there is a ban? But I don't trust the electrical car for a number of reasons. So we don't buy cars for the time being in Europe. And we close factories. And Chinese come here. So this is a real example of bad policy, just by ideology, that everything with fossil fuel has to be banned, full stop.
Also, if I may add to that, just one thing is even if the European Union would now completely abolish all these crazy green policies, I mean, it's an important lesson that this kind of things should not be decided at the European level.
Yeah.
Because if they make the wrong choice like they have, the consequences are enormous. If only Belgium would have done this, or Greece or Spain, you know, fine. Then they can correct their mistake much more easily. So, anyway.
Thank you for your presentation. My name is Patricia from El Debate.
From?
El Debate. It's a digital newspaper. I would like to ask if there has been any proposal in the parliament, like to do an inquiry about who's benefiting from these crazy ideas. Because, I mean, if in a board of directors, some of the CEOs come with a crazy idea, I need to know why he is saying that before taking the decision. Has the parliament proposed any inquiry or, I don't know, some kind of investigation or something to know what is happening really?
Thank you for your question, because a lot of people ask this question. A lot of people say, who is behind that decision? If you are recording, so okay, no, I will not say that.
Please speak out.
But it's recording.
It
so.
is recorded.
Okay, I will not say something. I will tell you bilaterally later. Yes, this is the problem that we are surprised to be so much misleaded. Not a little bit, it's huge, how we have been misleaded, at least in the field of energy. I don't know the other. But it's really incredible. How is it possible that we have destroyed our competitiveness and our industry? I have no answer to that. But certainly there are a lot of people or institutions behind that, not one. There are a lot of convergence because it's not good to have a too strong Europe from an economical point of view. And therefore, somebody has been really instrumental in that to destroy our competitiveness, to organize the destruction of our competitiveness. This is the subtitle of my book. I published a book on the energy insecurity, and the subtitle is The Organized Destruction of the Competitiveness of the EU. It's organized. I don't know whom have organized it, but it's organized. You can say, you can elaborate a lot of hypotheses, but we are not sure, but somebody, plural, have made that, of course, because it's not possible to be so stupid.
If I may just add to that, when it comes to fracking, it's been proven that, at least in the United Kingdom, Russia has been financing green groups that were against fracking. Of course,
Not only Russia,
even without
Soros and companies.
sure, even without the Russian money, the socialist, part of the political spectrum would have banned it anyway. But I mean, that's one thing that has been proven. Yeah.
I can confirm what you say, because when we start to discuss about shale oil and shale gas in 2010, more or less, 2011, it was in all conferences, there were Russian speaking that we don't need that. And they were insisting that we don't need that and it will not work. But it was really impressive. Not one conference without Russian being there saying, no, you should not do that because pollution and so on. There is a pipeline going from Baku to Cheyenne in Turkey, the BTC. There also, there is a demonstration that Russians were acting behind the scene to block the tubes, because the tubes were taking oil from Azerbaijan to Mediterranean Sea. Yes, of course, the Russians have been there, like the Russians have been against the the nuclear energy in Germany, and this is proof. I developed that in my book. They were giving money to the green in Greifswald, where the pipeline arrived, the Nord Stream arrived. They were giving money to the Greens there and the government to oppose to nuclear because they want to sell gas. Yes, there are a lot of blackmail with money, huh? But your question is not only on money; it's really on a strategy. Who is behind to destroy our economy?
Right.
So you're gonna go.
Adios, Ernest.
We've been spending about 10 years talking about small modular reactors. I was wondering if you saw any horizon in which they get added to the energy mix in Europe as a viable alternative to other sources of energy production.
There are a lot of advantages to develop SMR. First of all, because being small, it will cost less, and this is a real drawback of nuclear power plant. Nuclear power plant, electricity produced by nuclear energy is the cheapest electricity. No discussion, it is the cheaper. But you need 20, 30 years to recover your financing, because it's huge. SMR are smaller, and therefore less investment than you can recover your investment quickly. Second thing, because the M of modular of SMR is modular. That means that you can build the plant in a factory and transport it by barge or truck. So you save the work on the field, and it reduces a lot the investment. So there is common sense to do that. But there is another argument, and it's something that Mr. Draghi is not mentioning at all, and not a lot of people mention that. The most important energy that we use as final user is not electricity, it's eating. We need heat. In all our life, we need heat. There is no industry without heat. And smaller modular reactor, because they are small, they can be put in place near where there is a need for heat. And so you are able to produce the electricity, but in the same time, the waste of power plant is used as a thermal resource. So you improve drastically the efficiency of the system. Because for the time being, the big nuclear power plant just produce electricity and the heat is wasted because it's too huge. You cannot use that, it's too much. If you make a SMR, you can use the heat. So it's really fantastic for a global perspective of energy. But we need time. We need time to do that. You know, when we, in 1955, we decided that we should work on nuclear energy in Europe, and the Euratom Treaty has been adopted in 1957, the first nuclear power plant arrived in the 70s. 20 years' time. Of course, you need to develop the technology. And SMR is the same. And it will come. I'm sure that it will come. But in the meantime, we will need normal nuclear power plant. And then later on, SMR.
All right. I think unless there's any more pressing questions, we can give
Thank you.
Professor.